With the first sip of wine forced down her throat, Shen Yao knew trouble was brewing. The wine was a tribute from the western regions called Rouge's Drunk. It tasted sweet, but its after effects could burn a person to ashes. After just half a sip, her tongue felt scorched as if licked by flames. She immediately feigned a cough, covering her mouth with a handkerchief and spitting the remaining wine into her sleeve. But a few red spots still stained the handkerchief, like plum blossoms fallen on snow, except it wasn't wine, it was blood. She had bitten the inside of her cheek hard, forcing herself to stay headed. Is Miss Shen perhaps unable to hold her liquor? The eldest princess, propping her chin on her hand from the host's seat, the corners of her eyes adorned with gold leaf, smiled gently. Shall this princess have someone escort you to the side hall to rest? Shen Yao sneered inwardly. Rest? The side hall is probably already set up with the adultery scene, just waiting for me, the leading lady, to take my place. She shouldn't have come today. Her father, Censor Shen, had been dispatched to inspect the waterways and had repeatedly warned her before leaving. The eldest princess's banquet is almost certainly aimed at you. Plead illness and don't go. But the princess's invitation was delivered directly to their residence, even removing the excuse of being ill. If Miss Shen is truly ill, this princess will bring the imperial physician to your door. With the knife already at her throat, pretending ignorance would be defying a royal command. So Shen Yao went, dressed in the plainest moon-white robes, with only a single ebony hairpin in her hair, toning down her allure to the minimum. But her face was truly uncooperative. The moment she stepped into the flower hall, the chatter quieted by 3/10. Keeping her eyes downcast, she could still feel the gazes from all directions, like needles, and also like hooks. She sighed inwardly. So this is what it means that beauty brings disaster. The disaster is upon oneself. After 3 rounds of drinks, the princess suggested boating on the lake, leading everyone to the rear garden. The lake water at the end of the 3rd month still carried fragments of ice, its shimmering surface dazzling. A painted pleasure boat was moored early by the shore. Shen Yao intentionally lagged behind the group, and while no one was looking, shook the wine from her sleeve into the grass and swallowed 2 clarity pills, bought with 50 taels of her private savings from a Jianghu physician, claimed to be able to counteract knockout drugs, aphrodisiacs, and all other underhanded substances. She didn't expect that right after the pills went down, she would bump straight into someone's chest. The other party wore the crimson robes of the top scholar, a jade pendant chiming softly at his waist, but he carried a faint scent of blood, like a freshly sharpened blade, cold and sharp, yet restrained perfectly. My apologies. The man took half a step back, his voice low and steady, carrying a hint of a southern accent. Shen Yao looked up and met a pair of extremely dark eyes. Those eyes were beautifully shaped, but the outer corners drooped slightly, naturally holding a hint of a smile. Yet the smile didn't reach their depths, like a perfect human mask. Xie Wujiu, this year's top scholar, having achieved first place in all 3 levels of the exams, personally designated by the emperor as the son of the emperor and also the eldest princess's prime target for the evening. Shen Yao instantly labeled him Target +1, fellow sufferer. She stepped aside to let him pass, but heard him utter extremely softly and quickly, "There's something in the wine. Don't drink it." Shen Yao's brow twitched. Oh, so he's not a bookworm. But it was already too late. Although she hadn't swallowed the wine, the bit that touched her lips was enough to make her palms feel warm, and Xie Wujiu, she glimpsed from the corner of her eye, already had an abnormal flush spreading behind his ears. The princess had really gone all out, targeting 2 at once. Chapter 2, The Adultery Setup in the Side Hall. Shen Yao wanted to run, but her limbs were beginning to feel weak. She made a quick decision and turned to hide in a fake mountain rock grotto. There was an abandoned hidden conduit there leading outside the manor. She had accidentally discovered this dog hole when she followed her father to the princess's manor as a child, and now it came in handy. But the moment she ducked into the grotto, a hand covered her mouth from behind. Shh! Xie Wujiu's voice was close to her ear, burning with heat. There are people outside. The grotto was narrow, the 2 of them almost chest to back. Shen Yao could clearly feel the other's heartbeat, rapid and heavy, like a caged beast. And she wasn't much better off. It felt as if millions of ants were gnawing in her bloodstream, gnawing until she only wanted to. Stop! Shen Yao pinched her own thigh hard, extinguishing the rising improper thoughts. Sure enough, footsteps sounded outside the cave, mixed but not disorderly, well trained. Then came the voice of the princess's personal matron. Miss Shen, Lord Xie, are you in here? The light from torches seeped through the rock cracks, sweeping in inch by inch. Shen Yao held her breath, but heard Xie Wujiu chuckle very softly, using a breathy voice. Want to live? Shen Yao nodded. Then, my apologies. The next moment, the world spun. Xie Wujiu actually picked her up horizontally and leapt down into the hidden conduit with her. Icy water submerged her chest, the burning drug effect instantly suppressed by 3/10. Shocked by the cold, Shen Yao shivered and instinctively clung to the other's neck. The conduit ended at abandoned dock. The moonlight was like silk, and there was no one around. Xie Wujiu set her down, but then staggered half a step himself, falling to one knee and spitting out a mouthful of dark blood. You. Shen Yao was stunned. You're poisoned? Not poison. Xie Wujiu raised a hand to wipe the corner of his mouth, the back of his finger stained with blood, his skin tone pale to the point of transparency. It's heartburn, a lowly Jianghu substance. Mixed with Rouge's drunk, it can cause meridians to reverse. If not, if there's no union, death within 5 days. Shen Yao's mind buzzed. She was also affected by the Rouge's drunk, but her dose was light, and the cold water had temporarily suppressed it. But Xie Wujiu had clearly drunk the entire cup, and had even taken half a cup for her. Now the poison had entered his vitals, with no antidote. Unless... I'll marry you. Xie Wujiu suddenly spoke, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. After today's events, someone will surely follow us. On the way back to your residence, we'll be caught in adultery. Rather than being forced into becoming a concubine with our heads pressed down, it's better to strike first. Shen Yao was taken aback. She hadn't expected that at the critical moment of life and death, his first concern would be her reputation. And you? Xie Wujiu looked up, his gaze deep like a well. Are you willing to marry me? Shen Yao only thought for 3 breaths. Deal. She reached out her hand, her fingertips lightly touching the young man's blood-stained fingers, but with 3 rules. Speak. First, after marriage, we do not interfere with each other's private assets. Second, if you someday find your true love, grant me a divorce and compensate me 10,000 taels of gold. Third, Shen Yao narrowed her eyes, word by word. Find out who drugged us tonight. I want them to pay back tenfold. Xie Wujiu let out a low laugh. Under the moonlight, the small teardrop mole at the corner of his eye seemed tempered with frost. Agreed. Chapter 3, Overnight Scandal. When the two returned to the front courtyard, they were indeed caught. The eldest princess, accompanied by the Imperial guards, surrounded the pleasure boat, leaving no escape. Shen Yao and Xie Wujiu stood side by side, soaked from head to toe, one cold and pale, the other brilliantly red, like a painting blurred by water, looking utterly ambiguous no matter how one saw it. This princess was only gone for a moment, and Miss Shen and Lord Xie actually. The princess left her sentence half-finished, her eyes reddening first. Never mind. This princess will enter the palace immediately to request His Majesty bestow marriage, lest it ruin both your reputations. Shen Yao applauded inwardly. Masterful, truly masterful. Drug us first, then catch us, and finally, reluctantly arrange a marriage, both cementing my seduction charge and securing Xie Wujiu for herself, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But what the princess hadn't calculated was that Shen Yao and Xie Wujiu would publicly confess their crime, and do so faster than she could. Your subject is enamored with Miss Shen, unable to control his passion, and wishes to marry her with the proper rights of a principal wife. This commoner and Lord Xie are deeply in love. We beg your highness's 10 fulfillment approval. Both bowed in unison, turning the illicit affair into a romantic tale. The gentle smile on the princess's face nearly cracked, but she had to grit her teeth and nod. Good, this princess grants it. That night, news of the Imperial Censor's daughter and the top scholar's secret pledge of devotion spread through the capital as if on wings. The next day, the imperial edict bestowing marriage arrived at the Shen residence. so fast it seemed the template had been prepared in advance. Shen Yao held the edict, her palms cold. She had gambled correctly, but had also thrown herself completely into the whirlpool. Chapter 4. First day married. Husband takes her to arrest someone. On the wedding night, Shen Yao originally thought they would have to make the play real, but Xie Wujiu lay down beside her fully clothed, his voice low and hoarse. I used my inner energy to suppress about 80% of the drug's effect. The rest, I can endure. Rest assured. Shen Yao didn't put on false airs. She turned over and really went to sleep. Half asleep, half awake, she heard the youth's very light, labored breathing, like an injured beast licking its wounds alone. Before dawn the next day, Xie Wujiu was already up, changed into dark blue informal robes. He turned and reached out to her. Come, I'll take you somewhere. Where? Settle accounts. The carriage left the city and stopped at an inconspicuous small courtyard in the outskirts. Inside, the same matron from last night was tied up, a rag stuffed in her mouth, trembling like a sieve upon seeing Xie Wujiu. Heartburn was administered by her. Xie Wujiu's tone was faint, as if stating the weather. The one behind it, we both know. But the princess is of noble birth. There always needs to be a scapegoat. Shen Yao understood instantly. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. She stepped forward, drawing the dagger from her waist. It was the paper knife her father gave her at her coming-of-age ceremony, never having seen blood. Now, the tip pressed against the matron's neck, she said softly, Old woman, when you drug people, did you ever think about today? Her hand rose and fell. A lock of hair fell to the ground. The matron wet herself on the spot. Shen Yao sheathed the knife, turning to raise an eyebrow at Xie Wujiu. My hand is soft. I only cut hair, not throats. The rest is up to you. Xie Wujiu gazed at her for a long time, then suddenly smiled. Shen Yao, you're more interesting than I thought. Chapter 5. Same room, different beds, cooperation pleasant. Back at the residence, the two sat facing each other, laying their cards on the table. Father is in the Censorate of the purest faction, at odds with the second prince. Mother died early. Dowry is substantial, private savings even more substantial. Personally skilled at playing weak, actually bears grudges and repays them tenfold. Xie Wujiu, superficially a top scholar from a poor family, actually the young master of the hidden Sword Pavilion, well connected in both the righteous and underworld sides of Jianghu. Mother died early, father is missing, left him a mountain of gold, a sword, and a blood debt. Personally skilled at playing the pig, actually eats people without spitting out the bones. Pleasant cooperation. Shen Yao raised her cup, using tea instead of wine. Pleasant cooperation. Xie Wujiu lightly clinked his cup against hers, his gaze profound. That night, they still slept under separate quilts. When Shen Yao counted to the 300th sheep, she heard the youth beside her utter an extremely soft sentence. Shen Yao, if I am the first to fall in love someday, I'll add my life to the 10,000 tales of gold. Shen Yao didn't turn around, only pulled the quilt up higher to cover her wildly rising smile. Chapter 6. The Return Visit. Public Display of Affection. On the third day after the wedding, the newlyweds returned to the bride's family home according to custom. In front of the Shen residence, Shen Yao's 3 uncles and 5 male cousins stood in a row, preparing to give the new son-in-law a humbling welcome. But Xie Wujiu dismounted, hands behind his back, first paid deep respects to the Shen family's ancestral precept tablet, then personally presented a sandalwood box. Inside, neatly stacked, were banknotes worth 100,000 taels, labeled supplement to Shen Yao's dowry. This unworthy one has failed, letting my wife suffer for 3 days. I've come specifically today to apologize. With this one sentence, he stuffed the cold expressions of the Shen uncles back into their bellies. He lowered his own status right away and used money to uphold Shen Yao's face. To hassle him further would be disrespecting Shen Yao herself. Shen Yao watched from the side, marveling. This wasn't an apology, it was clearly paving the way with silver bullets, telling her pack of wolf-like and tiger-fierce relatives. If you want to seek handouts in the future, you have to get past me. Xie Wujiu first. After the noon banquet, father and daughter had a private talk. Censor Shen hadn't actually left for his waterway inspection, deliberately feigning illness at home to gauge the depth of his son-in-law. In the study, The old master closed the door and his first words were, "Young man, from the hidden Sword Pavilion?" Xie Wujiu lifted his robes and knelt. "Yes." "Want to borrow the power of my censorate?" "No." "Cooperation." The youth looked up, his voice remarkably steady. "I want the mastermind behind the canal funds case. You want the court cleansed. Our goals align. Why not join forces?" Shen Yao, crouching outside the window eavesdropping, secretly applauded her husband. Wow, directly discussing business with her father, more of an old fox than she was. Chapter 7, The Eldest Princess's Second Hunt. The day after the return visit, a birthday invitation from the eldest princess arrived at the Xie residence. Only Xie Wujiu was invited, not Shen Yao. Rumors instantly spread throughout the capital. The eldest princess still has feelings for the top scholar. Miss Shen is about to fall out of favor. Maybe he'll be taken into the princess's manor as a kept man in a few days. Shen Yao listened with great interest, even opening a betting pool. "Come, place your bets. Wager on when my husband will return." Everyone thought she was putting on a brave face, unaware that that very night she disguised herself as a man and slipped into the princess's manor. She had bet on won't return all night and had to go collect her winnings in person. The night banquet was set in the Lotus Garden. The waterside pavilion had curtains hanging on all four sides, the lantern light ambiguous. The eldest princess, clad in sheer red silk, her neckline low to the limit, personally poured wine for Xie Wujiu. "Lord Xie, the day you married, this princess's heart ached as if pierced. How could you bear it?" Xie Wujiu sat upright without moving, but his sleeve trembled slightly. Ding! A silver needle shot secretly into the gilded crane-shaped incense burner on the table. The rouges drunk inside instantly vaporized into white mist, rushing back towards the princess's face. The eldest princess inhaled a mouthful and immediately went limp, falling right into Xie Wujiu's arms. It looked like she had actively thrown herself at him. "Your Highness!" The palace maid cried out in alarm. "It's nothing." Xie Wujiu held her, his voice gentle enough to wring out water. "The princess is drunk. This official will see her back to her chambers." Having said that, he bent down, picked up the princess, and strode towards the inner chambers. But at a corner, he stuffed her into a dark spot, turned to the empty air, and said, "Come out. Had enough of the show?" Shen Yao hung upside down from the eaves, grinning widely. "Husband, what skillful methods, making her smell her own drug." "Antidote." Xie Wujiu tossed her a small vial. "So you won't scold me again later for dallying with flowers and grasses." Shen Yao raised an eyebrow. "How could I bear to scold? I'm still counting on you to pay more." Side by side, they leaped onto the roof ridge, the night wind whipping past. Shen Yao suddenly reached out and poked his chest. "Xie Wujiu, you held her just now. 1 tael of silver per hold. Remember to settle the account when we get back." The youth chuckled, his chest vibrating. "Fine. When we get back, I'll let you hold me all night, principal and interest included." Chapter 8, The Canal Funds Case, The First Blood. On the third day after the Princess Manor farce, a memorial regarding the missing canal funds reached the emperor. 2 million taels of canal silver from Jiangnan had vanished into thin air at the last lock of the Grand Canal. All 230 escorting soldiers had sunk to the bottom of the river, not a single survivor. The emperor was furious, ordering the Grand Secretariat to solve the case within 10 days. Censor Shen seized the chance to recommend, "The new top scholar Xie is meticulous and capable of great responsibility." The eldest princess tried to stop it, but the emperor, recalling that romantic bestowed marriage, simply went with the flow. "Minister Xie, we grant you the Imperial Commissioner's seal. Proceed south immediately. Solve the case in 10 days. If overdue, present your head." When the edict reached the Xie residence, Shen Yao was gnawing on a pig's trotter and nearly choked upon hearing, "Jiangnan? Isn't that the hidden Sword Pavilion's home turf?" Xie Wujiu patted her back, his voice barely audible. "Also the gold repository where Ting raises his private troops." Shen Yao understood instantly. The second prince wanted to use the canal funds to buy weapons. The hidden Sword Pavilion was responsible for laundering the silver, but then someone double-crossed, and the silver all sank. Now the Imperial Commissioner goes either uncover the truth or end up committing suicide out of fear of crime. "I'm going with you." Shen Yao wiped her mouth. I've placed 100,000 tael bet wagering you'll live. Not afraid? Afraid. She grinned, her smile sharp-toothed and keen, but more afraid of being a widow. Chapter 9. Sharing a bed on the boat. The Imperial Commissioner's fleet set off overnight. To avoid attention, Shen Yao disguised herself as Xie Wujiu's assistant. They shared the main cabin, separated only by a screen. The first night, Xie Wujiu sat cross-legged on the bed, using his inner energy to expel the poison. Before dealing with the Canal Fund's case, he had to first clear the residual heartburn poison from his system. Shen Yao tossed and turned, unable to sleep, and simply got out of bed. Do you need my help? The youth's forehead was covered in cold sweat, but he shook his head. Heartburn is a yang poison. Women are of yin nature. If we were to join now, the poison would transfer to you. Shen Yao was stunned for a moment, then suddenly reached out, cupped his face, and said word by word, Xie Wujiu, I'm not afraid of you dying. I'm afraid of you dying from holding back, afraid of poisoning me to death. The youth opened his eyes, their color deep as ink. Then are you afraid of death? Afraid. Shen Yao leaned closer, her forehead against his, but more afraid of missing out. The next instant, the world spun. Xie Wujiu pulled her entirely into his embrace, his voice hoarse beyond recognition. Shen Yao, I gave you a chance. The bed curtains fell. The candle flames snapped with a spark. Outside the screen, the river water rushed on as if playing a secret celebration for someone. Chapter 10. Arrival in Jianghu. The bloodward floating corpses. On the third day after the boat reached Jianghu, the floating corpses surfaced. All 230 bodies, neatly lined up at the lock gate. On each chest, a character was carved with a knife, connecting to form the phrase, Imperial Commissioner dies here. The scene was surrounded by commoners. Public opinion exploded instantly. Xie Wujiu crouched down, using a handkerchief to lift one corpse slightly, his gaze cold. Characters carved after death, knife cuts neat. The killer is a professional trying to intimidate me. Shen Yao put on lambskin gloves and examined the corpse's fingernails. There's gold dust under the nails. On both sides of the canal, only one place uses gold-dusted paint for their boats. Hidden Sword Pavilion. Xie Wujiu finished, his voice cold as ice. It seems there's a traitor in the pavilion. He stood up and gave a calm order to his deputy. Seal the pavilion tonight. Anyone whose boat uses gold-dusted paint, regardless of gender, kill them all. Shen Yao didn't stop him, only reached out and held his cold fingers. Xie Wujiu, don't forget, you are the Imperial Commissioner now, and also my husband. The youth turned his head, the bloodlust in his eyes not yet faded, but he curved his lips at her. Don't worry, I promise to pay you more. I have to settle accounts before I die. Chapter 11. Hidden Sword Pavilion. Blood rain washes the gold dust. That night, the lights at the Jianghu docks were all extinguished. Only the headquarters of the Hidden Sword Pavilion, Riverview Tower, hung bright lanterns. Xie Wujiu, dressed in black, his soft sword, startling swan at his waist, ascended the steps. Inside the tower, the 8 hall masters stood in formation. The gold-dusted boats were under the jurisdiction of the Right Protector, Whale Hand. The evidence was conclusive, but Whale Hand sneered. Has the young master turned on his brothers for a woman? Xie Wujiu didn't answer, only raised his hand. Snick. The sword left its sheath, the moonlight cut into fragments. 3 moves, Whale Hand's right wrist severed. The ledger for the gold-dusted boats obtained. Xie Wujiu sheathed his sword, his voice cold and steady. Betray the pavilion lord, kill without pardon. Betray the court, also kill without pardon. From today, the Hidden Sword Pavilion splits in 2. The dark stays in Jianghu, the white returns to the court. Those who refuse to accept, the next scene will be your bodies floating in the canal. No one dared utter another word. Shen Yao stood outside the Riverview Tower, wrapped in a black cloak, holding a bullseye lantern. She didn't enter, only raised the lantern high, as if lighting a path back for the youth. The smell of blood permeated the air. Xie Wujiu stepped out the main gate, his first glance falling on her, the cold sharpness in his eyes instantly melting away. Wife, I'm dirty. Shen Yao went to meet him, reaching out to wrap her arms around his waist. Go back and wash up, you'll still be mine. Chapter 12. Xiao Ting, Rebellion. While the iron is hot, Whale Hand was just a pawn. The true mastermind was the second prince, Ting. The sinking of the Canal Fund's ship was the first bucket of gold for his army-raising plan. Now that the gold-dusted boats were confiscated, he simply decided to start the rebellion ahead of schedule. 100,000 private troops crossed the Yangtze River at night, their torchlight illuminating half of Yangzhou. Xie Wujiu, bound by his imperial commissioner status, couldn't mobilize troops. But Shen Yao secretly released the Censorate's Green Luan token. Years ago, while inspecting the canals, Censor Shen had saved the life of He Chong, commander-in-chief of the three great camps of Jiangnan. Once the Green Luan token appeared, He Chong led 20,000 naval troops back overnight as reinforcement. Simultaneously, Shen Yao sent a copied version of Whalehand's ledger to the capital by express courier. After reading it, the emperor overturned his dragon table in fury. "My own son wants to rebel against me?" He issued a decree, appoint Xie Wujiu as frontline commander of the pacification army, authorized to execute first and report later. Appoint Shen Yao as fifth-rank supervising censor of provisions, in charge of the three armies' food and supplies. Husband and wife, one commanding troops, the other controlling supplies, blockaded Ting on the northern bank of the Yangtze. The night before the decisive battle, Ting stood armored at the bow of his ship, shouting to Xie Wujiu, "A Jianghu bastard, worthy of blocking this prince's path." Xie Wujiu held his sword, responding calmly, "Your Highness, if you can't even pass this road of mine, what makes you think you can sit on the golden throne?" The great battle began. Fire attacks on water, ambushes with crossbows on land. In just one day and night, the 100,000 private troops collapsed. Ting was captured alive, escorted back to the capital, stripped of his title to become a commoner, and placed under lifelong house arrest. Chapter 13, The Eldest Princess, Final Confession. After the rebellion was quelled, the emperor's old illness relapsed, leaving the heir position vacant. The eldest princess entered the palace overnight, requesting to have her fiefdom revoked, only begging to spare Xie Wujiu's life. Elder brother, this subject sister once had a momentary lapse, drugging and attempting to imprison Xie Wujiu, instead causing him and his wife humiliation. Now the realm is unstable. Only Xie Wujiu can be entrusted with the state. I beg elder brother not to doubt his loyalty because of this subject sister's crime. The emperor remained silent for a long time, then bestowed upon her 3 feet of white silk, allowing her to keep her body intact. That night, the eldest princess bathed and burned incense, changed into a set of bright red court robes, and hanged herself in the Jiaoyang Hall. She was only 29. When the news came out, Xie Wujiu stood alone at the Riverview Tower all night. Shen Yao didn't try to comfort him, only held an umbrella for him. As dawn approached, the youth suddenly spoke. "She harmed us first, but also saved me once. Shen Yao, I owed her a life. It's repaid now." Shen Yao held his hand. "No, you just returned that life to the realm." Chapter 14. The Grand Secretary Prime Minister, Settling Accounts by Red Candle. As the emperor's health declined, after 3 refusals and 3 urgings, Xie Wujiu, at the age of 24, entered the Grand Secretariat and was appointed Prime Minister. In the Golden Hall, the youth in purple robes and jade belt bowed deeply. "What your subject seeks is not power, not wealth, but only to grow old together with my wife, Shen Yao, without parting." The emperor laughed heartily, personally writing with the imperial brush, "Heaven sent good match, eternal phoenix divination." He also bestowed that the prime minister's manor and the censor's manor be built adjacent to each other, sharing a single flower wall, signifying ruler and minister, husband and wife, united in purpose. The belated grand wedding ceremony was held on the winter solstice. That day, heavy snow fell in the capital. The prime minister's manor was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, the bridal procession stretching 10. In the bridal chamber, 2 dragon and phoenix candles burned brightly. Outside the window, snow fell silently. Shen Yao, in phoenix coronet and red bridal robes, sat properly on the marriage bed, clutching an IOU. 10,000 taels of gold plus 1 life of the undersigned. Debtor, Xie Wujiu. The youth lifted the red veil, bent down, and placed a kiss on the corner of her lips, his voice low and hoarse. "Wife, principal, and interest paid in full tonight." The red bed curtains fell, the golden hooks chiming softly. Shen Yao's fingertips traced over his chest, where a newly healed scar remained, the mark from taking an arrow for her in the fiery Yangtze. Xie Wujiu, she whispered, from now on, your life is mine. My life is also yours. The candle flame snapped with a spark, as if nodding in agreement for them. Chapter 15, Epilogue, A Lifetime Together, Please Advise. The following spring, Shen Yao gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. The girl was named Xie Jiao, the boy Shen Guiju. One followed the father's surname, one the mother's, meaning two families harmonized, bloodlines united as one. Xie Wujiu implemented canal funds military system reforms at court, merging the Jianghu salt and canal operations into the imperial administration, increasing the state treasury's revenue by 3 million taels annually. Shen Yao established a girls' school, teaching girls accounting, litigation, and autopsy. Among the first batch of students emerged the Great Zhou's first female forensic investigator. Many years later, the official historians writing the biography of the Great Zhou Prime Minister mentioned very briefly, Xie Wujiu was fierce and decisive all his life, only feared his wife. Unofficial histories added more bluntly, feared his wife? Wrong. It was that when the madam glared, the Prime Minister himself would hand over the knife. Wife, who offended you? Your husband will chop them for you. End of book. Short scene. One day, while Minister Xie was discussing matters in the Grand Secretariat, the young Crown Prince asked in his childish voice, Prime Minister, why do you rush off so quickly after court every day? Xie Wujiu said with a straight face, your subjects' household rules are strict. I must return to my room by high hour, 9:11 p.m., to accompany my wife counting silver. The Crown Prince blinked. Can you finish counting? Xie Wujiu chuckled lowly. Can't finish, so we have to count for a lifetime.